Hi, so welcome to this third Facebook Live about the inner critic. And it may be that as we start to, in the last couple of Facebook Lives, we've been talking about building an awareness, which is the first key, because a lot of people, like I did, don't have an awareness of their inner critic. So really key to build that awareness. But as we start to do that, what can happen is you start to see, oh God, I've got this part of me that's continually criticizing me in not a very nice way. And actually, there's a lot of ways I'm beating myself up that I'm not aware of. And that can become quite uncomfortable. So today we're going to do something to kind of balance that out. We're going to connect with a part that's kind of the opposite to the critic, that can really help in this process of freedom from the critic. So, and this is particularly the case if you really go deep into this, and you start to see like how much of your life is actually wrapped up in this process of self-criticism. I mean, if you look at your kind of like daily life and the things you do, or even the kind of projects that you're involved in, often like the doctorate you're training in, or a lot of the things you're doing can actually come from this critical voice, come from this need to fulfill inner criticism. And what can happen is there can be a kind of, when we see how self-critical we really are, which is true for most people, our critic can kind of get hold of that. So then we start to feel really crap about ourselves because of how self-critical and wrapped up in it we are. So be careful of this trap, like look out for that. If the critic starts criticizing you for being critical, how ironic. And that happens. So what we're going to do today is a way to bring some kind of freedom and lightness from that. So we're going to work with the opposite. And the critic, as some of you will have discovered from the last two lives where we've been inquiring, it's kind of like a critical parent. It's spotting what's wrong and really letting us know that. So what we're going to tune in today is the opposite to that. It's like a good benevolent parent. It's the voice that knows your goodness, that reminds you of your goodness. Now, it might be that that voice isn't so accessible. I think that's true for almost everyone. And it may be that maybe you didn't experience good parents. And maybe there's a kind of doubt that you have access to that. And what I would say is, if that's the case, then we're going to do a little process with this right now in this live. So I suggest following along and just being curious what you discover, because even if you haven't had a direct experience of that as a parent, it's like we kind of learn about that in life. We learn about other people who are benevolent and supportive. So this is what we're going to do, and it may seem a little strange doing like a process on a Facebook Live, but I encourage you to have a go, because it is really powerful. Super simple what we're going to do, but it actually has a really strong effect. So what we'll do to begin with is I'm going to invite you to imagine that the voice that knows your goodness beside you. So we kind of imagine it into the space. So it's actually beside you. And then I'm going to invite you to physically move and move into it and see what you discover there. So you may have no idea what you're going to find there, and the invitation is just to be curious and see what emerges. So before we begin, we'll just start by landing in the body. So if it's okay for you, I suggest closing your eyes and just letting the breath fall out. So taking a deeper breath than normal and letting it go with a sigh. You can have a sense of your body sat on your seat, that there's a supportive surface underneath you that you're resting onto. Feeling the pressure of that seat and feeling your feet. And you might even have a sense of earth below. That somewhere below where you're sitting, there's the earth itself, physical ground. And just continuing to breathe, and you can let go of any tensions you find into a sense of that support, that earth below. Just noticing your breathing, noticing the body, verticality of the spine, reaching all the way up and then up to the sky above. And as you feel yourself here, as you feel your center, just going to begin to tune into a sense of this voice, even if you don't know it. Voice that knows your own goodness. And it may be that there's someone you've known in your life, or an archetype, or a historical figure like the Buddha or Jesus, who kind of embodies somebody who sees goodness. Whatever inspires that within you. Somebody who looks around who sees goodness. And then I'm going to invite you to imagine this part next to you. Might be on your right or your left. A little distance away from you, where you're sitting. And imagining them in, sense of how they're sitting or standing, their posture. You can even imagine their breathing, like how they breathe. This embodiment of the voice that sees goodness. How do they look? How do they move? How do they feel? And then in a moment, I'm going to invite you to physically move in and occupy that space. And when we move, the invitation is just to be really curious what you find there. So even if it seems a little weird, I encourage you to actually move, because it really makes a difference. So we'll move into that part now. And notice what happens. Allowing your body to take on the shape of the one that sees goodness. You might notice a difference in your chest, in your breathing. Really imagining into that, really being the one who sees goodness. The eyes open or closed. Tuning into how that feels. Your posture, expression. And there might be a particular feeling or colour or sensation that kind of fits with this place of seeing goodness. As much as you can, allowing that through, allowing that to come into you. And then for a moment, looking back to the place where you were sitting. And allowing yourself to see yourself through the eyes of the one that sees your goodness. And there may be many thoughts you've had about yourself in the past, and from here, from the one who sees goodness, that's all you see, goodness in this one. See what you notice. See what you spot in them. Let your heart open to them. And there may be a spontaneous way that you breathe or look, or even words that come that you would say. Really allow yourself to take on the form of this one who sees your own goodness. And if there's words, you can speak them internally or out loud. And we'll just go for a few more seconds, so really allowing it through. And your mind may be wandering, there may be ideas and thoughts, and you can just rest as much as it comes in this voice of knowing your goodness. And then we'll move back. So physically moving back to where you were originally sitting. And you can just allow yourself to receive, to bathe in this. To see how it feels to be sat here and really imagining this voice beside you. And if there were words that came from them, hearing those, receiving those. Noticing where it touches you. Probably if you let it, you will be touched. Most of us don't access that voice so often. So just a couple more breaths, breathing it into anywhere it needs to be received. Any places within you that need to know that they're good. So this little practice is something that you can do on a daily basis, and it just takes a couple of minutes, and doing it for 1 month makes a radical difference. So this is something that I did several years ago. I took on this practice, and you can do it in this form, just kind of moving into the voice. Or you can do it in a mirror. So if you do it in the mirror, you step and then you look into the mirror and you see yourself in the mirror, and then you kind of speak from the one that sees your goodness. And most of us really need this, because it's like most of us have much more critical voice internally than voice that tells us we're good. So it's really important to practice this so that we kind of create a balance within ourselves. And this is one piece, right? So we're working with the critic and we're building up this voice that sees our goodness to kind of balance it out. So in my experience, it's not the whole solution. It's just a piece. And I know that certainly in personal development, there's approaches that work solely with affirmation. But we also need to work with the critic. So we're going to be going back to that in the next Facebook Live. And yeah, I'm going to be bringing a key which is all around disengagement and freedom, so that once we have awareness, which we've already been building, we can actually step out and have some freedom from that pattern. So I hope this has been useful, and again I will put a link beside this to the next Facebook Live. Bye for now.